I have tried to record this video so many times. For some reason, every time I do, I screw something up. Now, maybe because I've been a little bit sick this week and my sleep schedule's off and I'm tired, but it's like this is take number 8 or 9. And when I say take, I mean I have recorded on multiple occasions 45-minute videos on this topic for somebody named Kenneth who sent me an email. So I don't know why I can't get this email done, but I hope that this is the last one. I'm not religious, but if you are, pray for me to get through this video. We're going to go ahead and look at an email that I got from somebody named Kenneth who says, and let me go ahead and move this over so you can see the original email, which I just redacted his name and email address and stuff. I have his name in there. I don't think that's that big of a deal, but I redacted his email address. So, hello, I found you through Reddit and watched some of your videos on YouTube. I recently graduated in June from computer game development. That field is very hard to get into, so I wanted to focus on IT since it's also an interest of mine. I've been applying since graduating for IT jobs since then, and still no luck. I posted my story on Reddit, and then they give the URL. If you could help me in any way, since you're very knowledgeable in the field, I would greatly appreciate it. I don't know what to do at this time since I've been denied too many times for the most entry-level jobs in IT. So, first off, you'll get there, right? I mean, and that's one of the first things I want to put out there. I'm going to go through some stuff for your resume. I looked at the URL that you sent, which is anyone else still hasn't found an entry-level job on there. And, you had some people that responded in sort of a slightly harsh way. I do think that some of their criticisms were valid and things that you should look at. But I can understand if you're down, if you're sort of depressed about this, completely understandable, right? So the first thing is stick with it, stick in there. You've been dealt a little bit of a bad hand. And part of that is going to suck, but we'll talk about how to go potentially fix it, right? So let me pull up Kenneth's resume, and I've got 2 different resumes. This is okay. So this is super zoomed in, right? I'm going to go ahead and pull this out so it's a little bit bigger. So he's got his resume here. Let me go zoom this out a little bit so you can sort of see the general kind of thing. So he's got a professional profile, sort of overview of kind of what he's looking for, sort of an objective kind of thing. Education, highlight of skills, work experience, and so forth, right? So we looked at this. He's got sort of the skill section. The first thing that I noticed when I was looking at this is that these are very general skills with the exception of a couple sort of specific things. So he's got Photoshop, he's got Windows, iOS, and Android. He's got Microsoft Office, and information technology proficiency, super general term. Functional knowledge of PC, software, and hardware functionality, very general. And then, I think that's sort of the gist of it, is that you've got some skills. You definitely want to have a skills section. I think that's probably the most important part of a technical resume, but they're very, very general. And then we go down to the work experience, where Kenneth has been doing tech consulting for more than 10 years. So this is 2007 to present. So troubleshooting issues with Windows OS, identifying and manually removing viruses, resolving connectivity issues, recommended hardware solutions, stuff like that. So then they have Christmas tree shops as a backroom associate and grocery clerk. So when I go over and had my response in the email, it says, "Thanks for watching the videos. Took a look at the resume, and these are some of the things that I thought of. You say that you're interested in game development, but your resume appears to be very general." Now, in fairness, I did have a follow-up email from Kenneth, and he sent me an up-to-date resume. He had been making specific resumes for IT jobs and game development jobs. So 2 separate resumes there. You don't list any games that you've developed on your resume. So this is what I meant by you had been dealt a bad hand, right? So there's two things that sort of kind of go together, right? So this bullet point here, you don't have any games that you developed, I think goes directly into the third point, which is you appear to only have an associate's degree, which isn't very valuable in IT. So I think that this is generally a problem that is mostly in the US, right? So I think in other countries around the world, education, at least at the sort of college level, is typically paid for by the government. You have a lot more public institutions, and this is a community college, so community colleges generally are run by the the state, but that's not always the case. So one of the things that happens in the U.S. a lot is people who are going to school and young generally, right? So you're 18 years old or so. That's when you start looking for college after you graduate from high school in the U.S., and you typically will graduate at about 18. So you're going to be going to school and you don't have a lot of life experience. Additionally, you have been conditioned for your entire life to listen to teachers and take the advice of adults because they have your best interest at heart. And then what happens is you go to schools which are either directly profit driven, or you have people who have jobs at those schools who are compensated based on how many people they get to go to those schools. Now, this isn't all universities, this isn't all schools, but this is a lot of them. And even very good schools do this a lot. I have a very good friend who is smart, nice, intelligent, skilled, and they went to school for art. I'm not going to say specifically where or specifically the particular type of art degree that they got. But when they graduated school, and this is secondhand information, so I haven't looked at verifying this or anything like this, but from the conversations that I've had with that person, they had about $60,000 worth of debt when they graduated from school. And they were going into a field where you would be very, 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 very lucky if you were making $30,000 a year, which is pretty close to poverty wages in most of the U.S., especially the kind of areas where jobs would be. Now, you can absolutely go to school and get a degree in art and have it be something that's going to make you money. But typically those are specific kinds of art. They're going to be entertainment art. They're going to be concepting, visual development, things like that. And this person didn't go to school for that, and they didn't go to a school that's particularly known for those things. So they graduated with a massive amount of debt, especially given their potential for income, right? So I think what may have happened is a similar thing for you. So you were sold a bill of goods to an extent. You were told that an associate's degree is going to be a valuable thing. And unfortunately, that's not really the case. And that sucks. Additionally, you went to school for game development. And given that you don't have any games on your resume, that to me means that as part of your schooling, they did not have you doing practical things for your degree. And again, that sucks. I think it's almost criminal, right? If you go to school for a degree in computer science, you should have programs that you can have in your GitHub repository that you can show to employers when you finish that prove that you understand how algorithms work, that proves that you know how threading works, and all the kind of basic stuff that you would learn in a CS degree. The day you graduate, you should have proof of those things. If you go to a good school, they will have you work on actual real things. There's a ton of open source out there. You can go contribute to open source projects, fix bugs, and have those kind of things on your resume. So you graduate with proof that you can do the thing. You should be ready to get a job. A lot of schools, and I'll go back to art as an example for this because I think it's sort of taking it one step away from kind of our interests, sort of, show this in a more universal sense. So if you went to like an art school, for example, a lot of art schools will have you do things like put together a grid where you gradate, from white to dark in steps to learn values. Super, super useful, right? Do the same kind of thing for hues and values. So you make these sort of things that you sort of, and that's awesome, and that's foundational to learning art and being good at that. But you also need to do paintings if you want to be a painter, right? And you want to do the kind of paintings that you would be selling in a gallery, or the kind of illustrations that you'd be selling to clients by the time that you graduate. And a lot of art schools don't have you do that, right? They don't know anything about how to, market stuff in the business world or things like that. So they screw over their students. And I think in the same way, if you went to a school for game development and you have not developed games, that's criminal, man. I mean, it's probably not like, technically, but it really sucks. So there are some good things, right? So according to their email, they live near Boston, which is huge. And for anybody who is not familiar with, different cities in the United States, Boston is one of the larger cities in the U.S. I think it's in the top 8 at least. And it's specifically known for technology. BBN was there. That became GTE. A lot of the AT&T development stuff came out of Massachusetts, which is where Boston is located. MIT is there. Harvard is there. Northeastern, I should say, is there. There's a lot of schools. Worcester Polytechnic, where I went to school, is there. Outside, obviously, it's a different city, but in that sort of general area, Massachusetts, there's a lot of really good technology stuff, and that's one of the places where the internet was birthed. Right? When the .com boom started, you had Boston and you had Silicon Valley. Those were the two sort of major tech hubs, and things have diversified a little bit. So now there's a lot more cities. I live in Los Angeles, for example. It's a very healthy tech scene here, but being in Boston is a great advantage because there's a lot of technology jobs there. So unfortunately, Kenneth doesn't actually live in Boston. He lives about 45 minutes away. I'm in between Boston and Providence, Rhode Island. So it's going to make it a little bit more difficult, but that's a positive. You live somewhere close to a lot of tech jobs. So I mentioned that the idea of your sort of bullet points and things on your resume are very general, and then kind of go through a few more things talking about you need to go make some games. The backroom associate and thing, they're not going to add a lot of value on a resume. And then in terms of networking, that's going to be very helpful. Take advantage of the fact that you're in Boston. Go to hackathons, go to meetups, go to those kind of things. And Kenneth did say that he's been taking advantage of some of those things. Also, and I don't think I mentioned here that Kenneth said that his school had a resume service that they help you build a resume, and that's sort of where his resume was built. So that he worked with them to get that done. So, and then the last point here is that, obviously you can't go back in time, but this video is not just specifically for Kenneth. It's also for other people that may be in a similar kind of position. If you were sort of looking at going to get an associate's degree at a community college, there's a very good reason to go do that, which is you want to go transfer to another school and get your BS, right? So as part of that, you might get your associates, right? Just as part of building up your credits so that you can go ahead and move to the other school. That's why you go to a community college. I think if you do that, that's a great idea. It's significantly less expensive, right? So it's going to cost you a lot less money than going to, a full university for 4 years. You can go to a community college for, a tenth of the price, and get all of your general education kind of stuff, your history classes, your, economics, your sciences, all that kind of stuff out of the way. And then you go to a school that's known for, a good CS program or things like that. So I think if you're somebody who, hasn't come from money, I think a great way to get an education is to go to a community college for 2 years and then transfer to a state university. So no matter what state you live in the US, they're all pretty decent. They may not be the absolute top of the food chain. It's not a Yale, it's not a Stanford, it's not a Harvard. But the main thing is to have a BS if you're going to go the college route. You have this very, very small elite group of Ivy League school that people really, really care about. And then everything else where they just care if you have a BS and you seem like a competent person. So if you weren't going for a full, bachelor's of science kind of degree, and now obviously this won't apply to Kenneth, but for anybody else in the position, you're probably better off getting certifications, right? So just go the certification route, get foundational certifications, and then that will get you in and sort of making money. That's going to be a higher value thing. So what I did, and I'm just going to kind of go through the one that I already sort of put together here because I don't want to go through the whole thing again. It's basically what I did is I just sort of redid his resume, right? So, and I redid his resume specifically for a particular job. And if I go pull up my web browser over here, if I can go find this, what do I do with it? We've got, yeah. So I went on Craigslist and I did a search for, a help desk, right? Because that's just a very general kind of term, right? So I just did a search for help desk jobs. This happens to be in Los Angeles. For whatever reason, the first time I did the search, the Boston Craigslist server looked like it was down. So I just did this for Los Angeles. And I picked this particular job, right? IT support, tech, help desk, multiple openings in Woodland Hills, right? Though this is actually 2 job postings. This is for level 1 tech support and then level 3 tech support. So for whatever reason, they skip over level 2. They don't have any openings. And then for level 1, these are the requirements. Desktop support, 1 year. iOS, 1 year. OS X, 1 year. Ticketing system is a plus. Mobile as a service, 360. And that's basically just you manage your iPhones and things like that through this. High school or equivalent. Organization skills a must. Excellent communication skills, written and verbal. And then they go down here to sort of talk about the organization. This is the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Talk about kind of what they do. Obviously, they're going to be working with, autism kind of stuff. And then the duties and responsibilities, right? So be highly adaptable to a changing environment, Apple skills, iOS support, support mobile devices, customer service skills, proficient in, Microsoft Suite, iOS, that kind of stuff, time management skills, workstation, laptop, hardware, parts replacement, ability to lift 40 pounds, this kind of stuff, right? So basically what I did, and I should have done it for the duties and responsibilities as well, but I did it with the experience qualifications, right? So I just grabbed these. And literally what I did is instead of having the skills that that they had on their resume, if I can go find this, where did I do this? It's a notepad. Where are we? There we go. So basically what I did is I just sort of put this in a template, name, surname, email, phone, etc. I didn't put the address on here. I specifically did not put the street address here. For one, I don't think that that's really necessary for most resumes. For two, you don't live in Boston. So if you're applying for jobs in Boston and you put an address that's 45 minutes away and there's somebody who's as qualified as you and they live 10 minutes away, they're going to give it to the person that lives 10 minutes away because the odds of them being late to work or missing a day is much lower. So what you do is you just skip the address part. You just omit that. And then if they ask you where you live, you lie to them. You lie to them. You say like, I'm splitting my time right now between, living in Providence with my parents on the weekends, and I'm staying with a friend here in Boston in the time being. And basically you just make it clear that you're going to relocate when you have a job, because that's probably what you would do anyway. So in this particular request in this job posting, they said to specify which position you were looking for, and also what your hourly rate was. So I said tier 1 help desk, rate negotiable. You never put in an actual rate. Now I think in the job posting they actually did include a rate. So they said, okay, no, they just said that this was negotiable based on experience. So Yeah, you don't put in a dollar number because then you limit yourself. So just see what they'll offer you. Whoops. See what they'll offer you and then kind of go from there. And then I added an objective. Now I go back and forth on objectives. You know, I generally, what I'll do is I'll send an email that has, you know, sort of a letter that talks about why I'm looking for this job and why I'm interested in it. So I'll do the objective that way. But I figured since this was one specifically for autism, you know, it's pretty easy to figure out what kind of objective might resonate with them, right? So somebody who is working at an organization that, you know, is working with autistic people and things like that is probably not in it for the money, especially if you're the kind of the hiring manager for IT. IT is something where if you have a decent amount of skills, you can probably make, you know, a bit of change. You can do fairly well for yourself. So, you know, they're not in it for the cash. So that's probably pretty obvious. So let's see if we can appeal to that. So our objective here is to find a position in the information technology sector where I can use technology and skills to help improve people's lives in my community. Is that your main objective in life? Maybe not. In fact, probably not. But I'm going to assume that you're a reasonably good person. And I think that's kind of everybody's objective to an extent, right? I mean, unless you're just a real douchebag, right? You want to improve people's lives and help your community, right? Now, your primary objective may be to make a lot of money so you can buy a new Porsche, and that's completely fine. Whatever drives you to excel in life, that's not my objective. It was at one point. I had a Porsche. It was pretty nice. But, you know, just, I think that's going to resonate with them. So think about what the person who's hiring is looking for. So to that end, instead of your skills listed here, I put these skills: 2 years of experience in IT. Why? Because the person who is hiring for this position is going to be saying, let me go check off the list. Do they have, you know, at least 1 year of experience with IT? Well, you have more than that. Now, on your resume, it said that you had 10. And I'm not going to lie, and I don't want this to, you know, offend you, but I don't believe you, right? And I don't think that you're lying. I think what you're doing is you're exaggerating. And actually, I think that that's a good thing. I think that you do want to put a spin on things to a certain extent when you're putting together a resume. And it's something I've, in fact, even recommended. I've told people, like, go do consulting stuff, and then you can say that you have some experience in there. But the fact of the matter is you're applying for a help desk job. And if you look at your resume, if we go back over here and we look at the dates, we can see that you were a grocery clerk from 2007, and then you were a founder at Kenneth Pierre Tech Consulting at 2007 as well, right? Now, if this was 2007 to 2008, and then, you know, this went to present, okay, I can have a little bit more believability to that. But what this means to me is that you were not doing this full time, and this was not a successful enough business for you to sustain yourself with that. So what we want to go do, and also another thing about this is, if you were doing 10 years of technology consulting, you are way overqualified for an entry-level help desk position. And that right there might be your issue in terms of why you're getting jobs. If someone looks at this and they say, oh, dude, right, if this person's been doing consulting stuff for 10 years, they're going to be here. They're probably just having a slowdown. They're going to be here for 3 months. And then as soon as their consulting stuff picks up again, they're going to take off. There's no reason why we're going to go spend all the time and effort to train them up for our organization and teach them our ticketing system and, you know, all that kind of stuff when we know that they're just going to bail, you know? So what I did is I just changed this to 2 years on your resume. So you beat the 1 year requirement by a little bit, but you know, it's a little bit more believable. So we'll look at that a little bit later on. But so we get the skills: 2 years of experience in IT, desktop support, Windows, iOS, OS X, iOS and Android devices, excellent organization skills, communication skills, right? And basically this was just copy and pasted from the job posting, right? So I basically went in here, selected this, and then posted that down there. That's it. So, we can then have these sort of skills listed out here, and then we have the the education. I put the high school on here because I don't think you had your high school on there. I assume that you did graduate there from high school. If not, then obviously omit that. Another thing that you can go do, and this is depends on how you want to go do it, is you can put a school and then just don't put a graduation date on it. Just put the dates attended, and you don't specify that you graduated for it. It's a little bit deceptive, but it's not necessarily lying. Just be aware that somebody may call you on that on an interview, and you want to be able to be, oh yeah, I went to school for this time and I didn't graduate. And whatever your reason was for why you didn't graduate. So that's the first piece, right? Then you get the highlights of skills, right? I would just call these skills. And then what you might go do is you might go pull a couple additional things from here, like Photoshop, functional hard knowledge of PC and hardware, something, And what I would do is I would try to simplify these skills down to keywords, right? So just like 1 or 2 word kind of things, right? So you can add to this, but you basically have these. And then what I did is I looked at your experience and I reduced it down, right? So one of the things that I did is I said that we get our experience here, 2016 to present as opposed to 2007. So I just made this match like 2 years. This is January of 2019 as I'm recording this video. So that's basically a little bit over 2 years. And then we have basically just different bullet points. And what I did is I went through each one of these skills, and every time I sort of had it matched to a line item that gave proof of that or gave an example of that, I just put these dashes up here. I would not keep the dashes for the final kind of version of this, but that was just a way that I was keeping track of things. So as I went through things, I just put the dashes next to it. So I communicated with email. So I just went in, put that down there. Helped resolve issues with Android and iOS. And in fact, I'll probably go back and do this a little bit more because on that job posting, we saw that there's a couple other things here where we had, the Microsoft suite and then time management and workstation. What I'd probably go do is I'd put this in here as well. And put these guys in here. And then what's another one? Network printers. And again, I would make these shorter and more succinct. So proficient in Microsoft Suite, I would just put, Microsoft Suite. On, oh. Right. So stuff like that. Make them as small as possible so that the person who's reading this can go through it really, really quick and say, okay, boom, 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 boom. Right. So time management skills. If you are not familiar with time management stuff, you can go back and say Pomodoro. Right. I have a video on the Pomodoro method on my channel. It basically is a very simple time management technique that you can go ahead and use. And then when somebody asks you about what do you use for time management, you can say, I use the Pomodoro method. I found it to be effective. There's a bunch of different things. Time management is super important. And this one I will not put a bullet point down there for because Pomodoro method gives you the sort of the proof of what that is, right? Let's say desktop and laptop repair, right? And then mobile phones and this, right? So these are, I picked the wrong one. I think this was supposed to be knowledge of network printing, right? So the goal here is when somebody looks at your resume, basically what they're going to be doing is they're going to have a list of requirements for a job posting. They're going to put those lists of requirements for the job posting in the job posting because they only want people who are qualified for it to apply. Then what they're going to go do when they get a resume is they're going to go through and they're going to go try to go figure out, does this person have those skills, right? And what this is going to go do is this is going to get your resume from somebody in human resources to somebody who can actually hire you, right? That's the first goal of a resume. The goal of the resume is basically to get you in the door. Once you're in the door, then you can go ahead and impress the person by your personality and, you know, the stuff that you know and all that kind of stuff. That's the idea, is to get to the interview. Once you get the interview, you know, then you're gonna, you know, if you're regularly getting interviews, you're going to get the job. And if you're regularly getting interviews and then you're not getting the job, what you want to go do is you want to follow up with those people. Maybe offer to buy them coffee or lunch, send them a card, like a physical card in the mail, and ask them for feedback on, you know, why you're not getting a job. Just literally tell them, be like, hey, you know, I think I'm qualified for these positions. I've had a number of interviews and I don't seem to be getting the job. I'm wondering if maybe there's something that I'm missing or I'm doing wrong in interviews. I'd really appreciate some feedback. So the idea is the resume is mainly there to get you in the door, get you your interviews, right? So education, and then we've got our experience. So basically what we want to go do is we want to go ahead and have for each one of these things, have, you know, listed there. So we get email, chat, phone with various clients or technical issues. That's your communication, right? We get Windows, OS, drivers, including YouTube, including email. So what I might go do is put Outlook, webmail, right? Things like that. So basically, this is reinforcing your you know, the sort of the bullet points that you have up there. You always wanted to go back to the bullet points, right? You always want to come around to the bullet points. Resolve connectivity issues with home networks such as routers, modems, and printers, right? So boom, this one gives us the printing kind of stuff, right? And it's great that it's networking. So I might go ahead and have this be resolving connectivity issues is fine, but I'd also maybe have configuring, right, instead. So you can tweak these resumes a little bit. What I'd be doing is I'd be changing it slightly each time. And then we've got desktop and laptop repair. I think that was on your original one, but I just basically blew most of these away when I put this together again. So let's do laptop. I thought that was in there. Okay. Installation of hardware components, right? So basically what I would do is I would just put this in here as, well, we get that over here. So that kind of gives it to us. Hardware on desktop and laptop PCs. So you can see that I'm sort of customizing this to specifically match all of the different things that they have on there. You know, and then I'd have maybe the last one be install, configure, and troubleshoot Microsoft Office on Windows and Mac. And maybe I'd so if everything's exactly the same as the bullet points, it may not seem like this is legitimate. So you might tweak it a little bit. So maybe you have Microsoft and Libre Office, right? So okay, it doesn't, you know, match up exactly, but this is included in there. So we got most of it here already. And then on the game development resume that they sent me, which was the second version that they had over here, resume game design, they had a couple additional things. So they had a couple things that were specific for their game development stuff. So they had a game design club, and then they had a a horror game group class project, and then a a Blender 3D render of an arena. So the first thing that I sort of mentioned here is that they mentioned unfinished. Boom, get rid of that. There is no reason to tell anybody voluntarily that your project was not finished. It was a project, right? Just leave it at that. So they're talking about the sort of specific technology kind of bits of this. But if they were part of a team and it was a group project, they almost certainly were part of organizing it because it's a group effort and collaborating with other people. So what I did is I grabbed this and I put this on there as well. And I basically just, changed it a little bit. So I had the first bullet point, help organize and complete group project for sound design in a game, right? So that then gives us our communication skills, written and verbal, and our organizational skills, 2 for 1 in that single bullet point. And then what I did here is just sort of to leave those jobs on there because there is some value in knowing somebody's had multiple jobs. Is I would put the grocery clerk job and I'd put the, I think the not the freelance IT one, but this was the backroom clerk or whatever it is. I'd put those on but I leave them like this, like a single bullet point with basically the job and the dates, right? So if you've been somewhere for 10 years, that speaks pretty highly, that you haven't gotten fired, basically. And with something like a help desk job, it's still an entry level position. So, somebody, may take that job and then bail, right? A lot of times it's younger people. And one of the things, and I don't, I'll put my gray beard and my old man hat on. One of the things that you notice about younger people is they don't sort of value the job as much, right? So they'll do things like show up late or, call out sick or stuff like that. So oftentimes people will get let go from their first few jobs when they're younger. You've had a job for a long period of time. That's very, very useful. So if you still have trouble finding a job, and I hope that this video is actually coming too late and you've had a great help desk job or something like that for a while now, because this has been about a month since you contacted me. What I would recommend doing is I'd recommend looking at a couple even lower level kind of technology jobs. And I think these are some that a lot of times people don't think about. The first one would be working in like a retail chain, like a Best Buy. I think that'd be a good one. Another one that you could go do is the Apple Store, right? Get a job at like maybe the Genius Bar, things like that. And those are basically retail jobs. So they're going to be easier to get than, maybe some other kind of stuff. And then the other one, and I mentioned this before, is volunteering, right? So if you volunteer, potential kind of places, then that's something you can go use to sort of get more references, get more things on your resume, especially with someone like this gig, right? If you knew that this place was hiring and you could found a, some kind of charitable organization in your area that did things with like autism, man, that would look good on your resume for this gig. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that you want to be doing this for each job that you put together. And the other thing that I think is probably a really good idea is to put together a spreadsheet sort of like this. So basically what this is sort of two different sections. We have sort of the, did I do this wrong? Yeah, so these are sort of the different bullet points that I had there. Yeah, and I did this one wrong. So what these should be is, oh no, actually I did this right. Okay. So these are sort of requirements that different job postings have. So the second one, provide help desk support for resolve problems, right? So what I did is I just went through some of the other Craigslist postings and I went through all of their kind of requirements. And then what I would do is I'd go convert these into skills, right? And then what I would do is I'd put your experience that sort of matched that skill, and I'd try to go combine those. So what you could do is you could just have a sort of like a spreadsheet And you can do this a whole bunch of different ways. You could put this in a database if you wanted to. You could write a little Perl script for it or Python script. I think those would be great little projects. And what you could do is you could build this sort of table that you could then go copy and paste these pieces into a resume and build custom resumes for each job that you're applying to really quickly. So that'd be some of the other kind of recommendations that I'd make. So I'm guessing this is probably a pretty long video at this point. So I think I'm gonna shut up and call it a finished. But Kenneth, I hope this was useful. I'm sorry about this taking so long. I literally recorded this like a billion times, and I for whatever reason, every single time I did, it would have some technical problems. So I'd take a break and then try to go record it again. And I'm hoping this one will finally work. So if you have gotten a gig by now, if you've sort of got that sorted and sort of had success with that, I'd love to hear what you ended up doing, what ended up working for you. For anybody else who's in a similar position, I'd love to hear from you guys if there's any sort of feedback that you can give about these sort of advice videos, or if you have anything that you're looking for advice for, please feel free to post a comment down below. You can contact me on Mastodon or any of those kind of other sites that I had previously posted up there, and they're in the description of the video as well. You can also contact me at YouTube at nicholasbernstein.com, which is just sort of an email address that I use for the YouTube channel. And I don't guarantee that I'll be able to get back to you immediately with answers to your queries, your questions, your requests for advice. But there's a good chance I'll be able to get them to you. It might take a month like this. And again, sorry, Kenneth. But I think that's I'll do my best to try to sort of help you guys out. And I think I very much empathize with being in that position where you have a hard time finding a job. The other advice that I would give you, and this has nothing to do with getting a job, but something just to kind of be aware of, is when you're trying to find work and you're not able to do it successfully, that can be a very big risk for potentially falling into depression. So what I would try to go do, if you're not doing this already, is find organizations, find clubs, find activities that you can go do to just sort of do stuff outside of constantly looking for a job. Personally for me, I found martial arts to be incredibly useful for that. If you're in Massachusetts, I don't know if they're still open, but look up the North Shore Tai Chi Club in Salem, Massachusetts. It's going to be a bit of a haul for you. But I took lessons there back in the day, and it kind of ruined me for a lot of other martial arts places because you basically paid what you could afford at the time. I think the base price was $30 a month, which is crazy cheap. And if you couldn't afford that, you could help out around the school, and that was awesome. And I had a scenario where I had I gotten let go from a job. It was a little bit of office politics kind of stuff. It was my first gig, and I didn't realize that it was part of the consulting game that sometimes there's a fall guy, and I wasn't savvy enough to realize that I was being set up for that. And in fairness, they were going to lose the contract otherwise, so I don't hold a grudge for it. But I got let go from that. I had to go start looking for work again, and I was incredibly depressed for a long time. I never had anything like that happen to me before, and I found that going somewhere regularly, getting exercise, being part of a group, a community was really, really useful for that. So if you're still looking, if you're having trouble, keep your head up. When it comes to your original Reddit post, I know that some of the people who responded on that post were a little bit harsh on your resume. I think the style of advice that they gave was maybe not the most conducive to having you make changes and that being useful. But I do think a lot of that advice was good. So I'll include the link to that post in my YouTube video description for anybody else who wants to go take a look at some of the advice that other people have given you. But I hope this was useful. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video, and good luck with your search and getting a job. And I'm crossing my fingers that this is successfully recorded and I can actually finally upload this thing. So we'll give it a go. So see you in the next video. Have a great day.